Welcome to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How many of you have been here before? A few, that's good, good.
What?
Well, hopefully, what?
I mean, y'all live here or no?
Yeah, no, most of them, let's see, we got some
we got
long
here?
distance here. We're gonna go through this in just a second. Let me give you a little overview of what we're doing here today, and I think hopefully you have a pretty good idea, but we want to just kind of go over just quickly, give you an idea of how our program will run today. It's going to be great fun, and I think you'll find it very informative. But what we're really here today, we have a fantastic guest with us today who I will introduce in a moment. But contrary to what you might be thinking, this isn't a lesson about football today. This is a lesson about life. We're talking about specifically how the 6 pillars of character, those 6 pillars of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship are characteristics that not only are a part of our everyday life, but was a part of Thurman's life, not only as a professional athlete, but as a man in life after football. And we want to go through those characteristics and show how they can be a part of your life and how they're all examples of excellence and how we strive for excellence in everyday life and how you can be Hall of Famers in everyday life. We call this program the Heart of the Hall of Famer, specifically for that reason. So we can show you how you can take the lessons learned on the football field or the lessons learned in life and apply them beyond what you might think and how they can help you achieve excellence in whatever it is you set out to do. I'm going to go through and recognize you right now. We want to kind of say hello to everybody here individually and ask you to give yourselves a shout out to let everybody know that you're here. We have some schools tuning in on video conferencing as well that we'll also acknowledge. So let's start with Canfield High School. Where are you, Canfield? Come on, nobody here from Canfield? There, one. You're it? You're it. Come on, Canfield High School. Let's hear it for Canfield High School. All right. All right. Orange High School from Pepper Pike, Ohio. Where are you at, Orange High School? Oh, there we go. Come on,
come on now.
Let's hear it. Come on.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy, man. Don't be shy. You get left out a lot.
This school I know is going to bring the roof down. McDonald High School. Come on. There it is. All right. Collinwood High School. Where are you, Collinwood? All right. Loud and clear. All right. Very good. We have joining us on video conferencing technology here today, Lindsay Holy Family from Lindsay, is that Nebraska? Yes, where are you? Are you there? Wave. I think we see hands waving there. Welcome. We also have Ellicott Elementary School from Callan, Colorado. There, now I see hands waving for that one. There. Great, welcome. Krista McAuliffe, Lancaster, California. There, okay, there, we saw the waving up there in the right corner there. And Richland School District from Columbia, South Carolina. We're getting a roll there. There we are, down there in the corner. All right. So welcome to all of you. We're really happy to have you here, and we're happy that we're able to tune in through teleconferencing with those other schools. I was just saying that we have a great guest, but I know a lot of you are into social media, and I want to point this out. If any of you are using social media today, please use hashtag Heart of HOFer, ER. So hashtag Heart of HOFER. That way we'll know you were here. That's great. I'm going to take a little time right now to introduce you to our special guest. And this is a gentleman who I'm very happy to have here today. As he knows, he played in Buffalo with the Buffalo Bills. That's my hometown, so I followed his career closely. He broke my heart sometimes. He got me, my wife would leave the house when the Bills were on television because I would get so emotionally tied to that team. But anyway, Thurman Thomas, who is our guest today, was a second-round draft pick for the Buffalo Bills back in 1988, and I want to explain that a little bit. When Thurman was coming out of Oklahoma State, everyone had projected him to be a high first-round draft pick. But unfortunately, in his senior year, he had hurt his leg, had an injury, and it left some of the teams questioning of how healthy he would be his first year as a pro. So suddenly, all these teams that had looked like they were going to draft Thurman in the first round didn't. My Buffalo Bills sitting there without a first-round draft pick were the beneficiary of that great blunder by the others. So in the second round, Buffalo was able to draft him. Buffalo did not have a first-round pick that year. So when Thurman fell into their lap, it was one of the great days in the franchise's history. He truly has became a great player and a great ambassador for the city of Buffalo and his Buffalo Bills. After a great rookie season, proving all the pundits wrong that he was a great pick, in his second year, he rushed for 1,244 yards and caught 60 passes. And that's an amazing thing. Think about it. Those of you that know the game a little bit, for a running back to catch 60 passes, that's more than most wide receivers catch in a season, particularly back in the late 1980s and early 1990s. It was an altogether different type of system of play that Thurman brought to pro football along with his teammates with the Buffalo Bills. How many have ever heard of the hurry-up offense? It's an exciting offense where the ball is always in play. Well, Thurman was a key player in that design where they would go no huddle. They would just keep moving the ball down the field. Thurman was a threat out of the backfield as a running back, but also as a receiver. He had the great Jim Kelly, who Thurman may mention later on in his comments, as his quarterback. It was called the K-gun after their tight end. Everybody thinks it was named after Jim Kelly. It was actually named after their tight end. But it was a great offensive football team, and they had great defensive stars as well. Thurman and the Bills went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. This is something that had never happened before, and I will tell you, I'm an historian of the game, it will never happen again. The game has changed. Free agency has made it very, very difficult for teams to stay together. But the nucleus of that Super Bowl team, Super Bowl 25 team, went to Super Bowl 25, 26, 27, and 28. And what are they known for? Everybody says they lost 4 Super Bowls. We Buffalo fans like to point out, no, they didn't. They won 4 AFC championship titles. That's the way history will record it.
It's like a silver medal, you know?
Yeah. But it's an important thing because as we talk about character and we talk about perseverance, we talk about all the qualities and the characteristics of achieving greatness, Thurman will reflect on how hard it is when you get knocked down sometimes to get back up. Even though you were succeeding, you got to the highest level of your conference. You couldn't have gone any higher in the AFC. People still remember it as losing 1 game. And that really is a kind of a wound that takes time to heal. But he'll talk to you about how that healing process took place. Thurman was named to the all-decade team in the 1990s. That means during the 10 years of the 1990s, Thurman was looked at as the greatest running back of that decade. He was an all-pro, Pro Bowl player 5 times, and ranked 9th at the time of his retirement as a running back. Now, that does not count his receiving yards. Just in the history of the game, since 1920, he was the 9th most productive running back in the history of the game. His crowning achievement, however, and I think I can say this for him, was when he was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. One of now 287 people who are in the Hall of Fame. More than 24,000 men have played the game. Only 287 are in the Hall of Fame, and not all of them are players. Some of them are coaches and contributors. There's 19 contributors, so that number even gets smaller. So he's among the most elite of elite fraternities in terms of his achievement as a professional football player. He was born in Missouri City, Texas, grew up in Houston. He now resides in Orchard Park, New York, which is a suburb of Buffalo. It's where the Bills Stadium is located. He's come back to Buffalo, where he often interacts with the community there. He is literally an ambassador for the Buffalo Bills, and since being elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he's become an ambassador for the Hall of Fame. He does us proud, he does his team proud, he does his family proud. His family includes his wife Patty, his daughters 24-year-old Olivia, and his 22-year-old Angel, 17-year-old Anika, and 12-year-old son Thurman Lee Thomas III. Sounds like he should be president.
No.
No, okay. Well, we'll leave it at that. I'll leave the dad to address that.
President of Apple or something.
Okay, that's good. That's better.
Yeah.
At this time, I would like, if we could, just take a few minutes. I'm going to introduce a quick video so you can see just exactly what an effective runner. This is a very brief video clip, but you could make an hour reel of his highlights if you wanted to. So if you wouldn't mind if we could roll the video just to give you a taste of Thurman Thomas's great playing ability.
Thurman Thomas was the 8th running back taken in the 1988 NFL Draft. When he retired in 1999, he was the NFL's 9th all-time leading rusher. In 1991, after gaining over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, Thurman was named the NFL's MVP. He dominated again in 1992, leading the NFL in yards from scrimmage for an unprecedented 4th consecutive year. The 5-time Pro Bowl selection finished his stellar 13-year career with 88 total touchdowns and was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2007.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hall of Famer Thurman Thomas.
Thank you. I wonder why we always get a little, the second time, well, today, this is my second session, we get a little chuckle there when I didn't spike the ball. And that goes back to my head coach, Marv Levy. You know, growing up, you know, I wanted to play football. Obviously, I was a baseball player growing up. Wanted to play, I didn't start playing football until 8th grade. But I can remember scoring my first touchdown in the National Football League in 1988. It happened to be the first game of the season against the Minnesota Vikings. And I spiked the ball because, you know, I told myself, that's what I'm gonna do. If I ever make it to the National Football League, I'm gonna spike the ball. That's just the way it was going for me. So I end up spiking the ball. I come over to the sideline, and my head coach, Marv Levy, is like, come here. And he was like, you know, why did you spike the ball? I said, Coach, you know, it's my first NFL game. I've seen countless players spike the ball, and I just wanted to do it too. And he said, all right, make sure that's the last time. Because I want you, for as long as you play this game, I want you to act like you've been there before. And so after that, I never spiked. I was pretty much just spiked right there that last play. That was as much as I ever did after that. I wasn't a guy who, you know, celebrating or doing anything like that. And he just kind of said, just respect the others, respect the other team. You know, come over here to the sideline and celebrate with your teammates. And so that's kind of how, you know, kind of how I've carried my career throughout is, you know, respecting others, caring for others. It's the reason why I moved back to the Buffalo area back in 2007, because I had some unfinished work that I wanted to do, which was giving back to the community, you know, visiting the folks that I really couldn't visit from when I was playing football because, you know, I had a job to do. But now that I'm back in Buffalo, you know, I'm doing the things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do when I played, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think that was right. And which is giving back to the community, you know, giving the love back to the fans that supported me, supported the team throughout the 12 years that I was there with the Buffalo Bills. And but that's what it's always been about for me, respect, caring about others, being a good citizen, respecting the integrity of the game of football and life afterwards. So,
well, I think, you know, as Thurman is alluding to, I think that, you know, those pillars of character that we talked about, I don't think there's any better way to exemplify that, and I say this with all humility and respect for what Thurman did for a career, and that is a team sport. A team sport. If you think about those 6 characteristics that we went through just a minute ago, and think about teams, trustworthiness. If you can't trust your teammates, you're not going to succeed. Respect. You not only respect your teammates, you respect your opponents. You heard Thurman just say that, respecting your opponent, how important that is to have an appreciation for the game. Responsibility. If the offensive line doesn't do its job, Thurman's not going to get his job done. You take on that responsibility. Every man is responsible for his job to see that everyone succeeds. Fairness. That's why there are rule books. There's fairness in sport. We teach fairness. We teach fair play. We don't cheat. That's another characteristic that I think sport can teach and hopefully students can emulate. Caring. Thurman talked about it, going back to his community, caring for the people that supported him, but you also care for teammates throughout your career. You care about their health, their future, their successes. And citizenship. Again, there's a community that Thurman talked about going back to Buffalo, his community, but he had a larger community, which he represents through being a Hall of Famer now, but also caring for his community, which is a community in the locker room. You know, we don't have to think of communities as just where we live. It is communities, or groups of people that we influence, that we share our emotions with. So all of those things, I think, come through in a pro football career. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk not to you, but have you talk to Thurman through questions and answers. And we have some questions that were posed to us from some of the students that are here and some that are on the video conferencing. And we're going to intersperse those with questions from the live audience. But before we do, I think I just might ask Thurman something to kind of get things started here. You know, we talk about the locker room, and we talk about, you know, what goes on. Sometimes we hear things that aren't necessarily pleasant right now. And I think sometimes we hyper-focus on some of the negative things that we hear about. But if you could talk a little bit about the community of the locker room and the team and the bonding, particularly from a team that went to 4 Super Bowls, got knocked down 4 times. How difficult was it to get back up? And what an important role, or what role did the community of your teammates play in surviving that defeat?
Well, I think it all starts with our owner, Mr. Ralph Wilson Jr., who just passed away a couple of days ago. Was up at the funeral in Detroit this past Saturday. And also, you know, on the flip side of that, one of my best friends, one of my best buddies, one of my best buddies on the team, Jim Kelly, you know, he's in New York City right now, battling cancer right now. And so, but I think it all starts with our owner, Mr. Wilson. And when you talk about caring and family and being in some type of leadership role, citizenship, or the integrity of the game, when you start talking about all those characteristics, Mr. Wilson is one of those guys who we all looked up to. Just some of the things that were said about him at the funeral Saturday, things that I didn't know, things that a lot of people didn't know. I mean, he gave a lot of money to charity, which nobody even knew. I mean, obviously he did it on a certain level where he was, you know, where he did it kind of in a private way. But when you start hearing the stories about how many people he helped, not only in Detroit, but in Buffalo and just everywhere. I mean, he just gave the Pro Football Hall of Fame a new building, which cost a couple of $1 million. And so we're right now in a tough situation as a team. But let me tell you something right now. If I had to go through it once again and lose 4 Super Bowls in a row, I would do it with the exact same teammates that I have, because there was more to life than just football with us. It was about family, and mostly it was all about family. When you have guys, I think it was 36 guys that actually played on all 4 Super Bowls. Jim Kelly has a golf tournament in Buffalo. I think it's going on its 28th year. And out of the 36 guys, 3 of them have passed away. So we're right at 33 right now. All the guys that played in those 4 Super Bowls, they all come back. And even, I'm sure a lot of y'all know the name Scott Norwood. He comes back. Yeah. So, I mean, we're a very close football team. And for us to go to 4 Super Bowls, lose 4 Super Bowls, there would not be a better bunch of guys that I would love hanging around with. I mean, not only do we respect each other, we just gained another family, is the way that I look at it. And just people that just actually genuine care for each other, you know, even today.
And you mentioned, and I think it's important to mention for teachers, coaches, and classmates, call yourselves teammates for a moment. Each of those played a role in Thurman's success, and that's what he's saying. From the owner, who most people don't think of as playing a part of the individual person or the team's success, to the coach who taught him about character. Don't spike the ball, Thurman. Act like you've been there before. You know, that was a life lesson he gave him. It had nothing to do with how well he played. It was a life lesson. And then his teammates and how they bonded together in the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It was important that you weren't a teammate just when you won. More important was when you lost. And I'm going to ask Thurman to share a story a little later on about a moment in his career that I think epitomizes teammates and what it's all about. But let's get started. Let's get started with some questions from you, and we'll intersperse here and there and get some themes going here that I think are relevant to today's discussion. Let's see, McDonald High School, we got from you earlier. The question was, what was your inspiration during your football career, Thurman? What inspired you?
Well, you know, there were a lot of things, you know, obviously looking at the hard work from, you know, my teammates and coaches they were putting in and day out. But for me, you know, I got into the league in 1988, and going into my second year, I was 22 years old. You know, I had my first kid, and so, you know, that became really important in my life. You know, it was like, wow, I got a kid. You know, I grew up an only child, so this was like, wow, you know, this is something totally different for me. But I just think the love of the game was there for not only me, but for a lot of other players. And we just actually got along very, very well throughout our career. But, you know, my mom, you know, I grew up only child, single parent. My mom and dad got divorced at a very young age. I was 4 when they got divorced. And so I was moved around a lot, you know, with my grandmother, my uncles, my aunts, you know, cousins, but throughout that period of time, always had a stable relationship with family and with friends. So it made me, you know, understand a little bit more about life than it took, you know, some people 18, you know, at 12, I was very mature for a 12-year-old. Because I had been around my parents. You know, I still stayed some time with my dad, but I grew up in a lot of different house homes and just learned a lot of things. And I really think that helped me, you know, as a human being growing up and dealing with adversity and dealing with certain things in life that a lot of people can't, you know, if you're young, you really can't deal with it. You really, you know, need to rely on others. And I did rely on others, but others also relied on me also.
Here's a very interesting question. This comes from Ellicott Elementary School in Lancaster, California. And they ask, which of the pillars, I'm going to repeat them, which of the pillars is the hardest for you to follow, whether it be trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship? Which is the toughest for you to think about following in everyday life?
Well, I think for me, the hardest pillar probably for me would probably be respect. And I say that only because I might not know that person. And that person might not know me. They may know about me, and I don't know their ideas or their thinking about, you know, what the situation with me. So, I mean, because there's a lot of times where, you know, somebody might say something and, you know, you'll just go off right then and there. So I think for me, even though sometimes we don't agree on everything, I think there still has to be a respect factor there. You know, you just can't just walk away from somebody and say, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't get it or whatever. I think there has to be some type of level of respect for every human being. Black, white, green, yellow, whatever. It has to be some type of respect. And I think that's one of the things that, I don't really struggle with it, but there's a lot of times where the respect factor does come into play. Like I said, with certain things or certain ideas. So I definitely think the respect. You know, I've learned over the years of having 4 kids and being around different adults and respecting their opinion, but not making it to where a point where I'm not feeling comfortable being around them. Everybody that I come in contact with, there's always that level there of respect, and I think for me, that's definitely the hardest one.
We hear a lot about celebrities, and I'll put you in that category of celebrity where...
I don't like that.
Well, I know you don't, but the world looks at you as a celebrity, and the challenges that come with that.
Right.
Look at movie stars that are having their children photographed that they don't want. With that respect, there's a lot of patience that you have to develop, I'm sure.
Yeah.
During your career, I'm sure you had incidences where you had to step back and let it go.
And most of those have been around reporters. Most of those have been around reporters asking questions like that. But there are times where you do have to step back and say, okay, and I've learned to do that over my career, step back and just let it go. Just let the flow go. And so, it's being out there. I have a hard time, I guess, a hard time being a celebrity or so-called celebrity. Even though I played a game that a lot of people love and I love the game, I hate when people talk about me. Oh, he did this and he did that and he played. I can't stand it. I'm the type of guy where it never has been about me. It's always been about my family. It's always been about my teammates. Hey, look, I take a back seat to all that stuff. I don't, just this past weekend at Mr. Wilson's funeral, they showed a little clip of like every AFC championship game that we won. Our PR guy mentioned this to me. He was like, you win the championship, your owner comes up there, a couple of players come up there, and the stage was always right by my locker. He said, why didn't you ever go up on the stage and have whatever talk to you? I said, that's just not my style. I'd rather sit back in the background and let the guys who, my offensive linemen, let those guys get all the glory. So, I've never been that way, and I'm hopefully, and I think I've done a good job of really, raising my kids that way too. Because they were, obviously being their dad, there are some things that people say or do or whatever, and I haven't had any incidents of where my kids will come back and say, well, this person really ticked me off and I did something. So, that's just the way it is in my life.
So I think we can add to those pillars of character humility.
Yeah.
Often we see, and unfortunately we see it too often, perhaps in athletes who need to showboat a little bit, and some excessively. But I think if you look at Thurman as a perfect example, and if you look at other Hall of Famers, the vast majority of them are like Thurman, very humble and appreciative of the God-given skills they have. I think it's a quality that we all should, take a little dose of, some patience, some humility. So let's go to another question. Let's go to the live audience here. Do we have a question from out here? Well, let's wait for the microphone there. Then say your school and your name so we know who we're listening to. That'd be great.
My name's Josiah Cross from Orange High School. I just want to know what kind of mindset you had after that third Super Bowl loss. Like, what was going through your mind and your teammates' mind?
Well, we always talk about that. It's tough. Our mindsets were, wow, are we ever going to get this right? Are we ever going to, go out and play a football game and play 4 good quarters of football? Our mindset was, you know what? We still got a young team. We still basically have all our players that got us to the first 3 Super Bowls coming back. So our mindset was, hey, let's just go back and try to do it again. Our mindset really didn't change all that much. We still had the same coaching staff. We still had the same most of the same players. Obviously, players leave, players get cut. You know, you might trade for somebody and, you know, they might have a different way of doing things, but our mindset never wandered is that, hey, we can still get this done. I mean, I think with the players that we had on our football team, some of the most tough-minded individuals to play the game. I mean, Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly, Cornelius Bennett, you know, my buddy Andre Reed, who just went into the Hall of Fame this year. But I think the one guy that kept us all together was our head coach, Marv Levy. Unbelievable guy. And he used to always say, when we started our football season, you know, we just have one more river to cross. And that became back in 1989, we always said that it's just one more river to cross. And so our mindset was great. I think those are the type of players, you know, that I'm sitting up here talking about, the tough-minded, the caring people. Those are the type of players that you need in a tough situation. And we definitely had a lot of guys on that football team that, you know, that lifted everybody's spirits. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were playing the Houston Oilers in 1992 in the wild card game in Buffalo. We fell behind 35-3. This was I think it was a divisional game. We fell behind 35-3. Now, Darryl Talley, who's from West Virginia, no, Darryl is from Cleveland.
Cleveland, went to West Virginia.
Yeah, he went to West Virginia from the east side of Cleveland, as he called it. We were losing 35-3, and this just shows you the heart and soul of the guys that were on that football team. He gathered as many guys as he possibly could on the sideline, and his exact words were, now we're down 35-3. His exact words were, now we got them right where we want them. Everybody was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm thinking about what flight I'm gonna catch out of here. But that's the type of players that we had on that football team. And once we started coming back, we ended up winning the game in overtime, 41-38. And we got into the locker room. It was a big celebration, but we knew it could lead to something bigger, which was winning the next game, and then winning the next game, and then going to the Super Bowl. But, you know, I think everybody in that locker room said that same quote to the television station, to the reporters that they were talking to, and basically we just let Darryl Talley talk for everybody instead of, you know, because everybody was wanting the TV station, wanting to interview, you know, 40-something players. And it got to a point where it was like, look, just go talk to him. Just go talk to Darryl Talley. So that was the type of mindset that we had as football players and the type of leaders that we had on our football team.
Yeah. Leadership is a big part of success and a big part of success in sports. We have another question over here, Thurman.
Yeah.
My name is Cameron Jennings, and I go to Collinwood High School. I wanted to know what motivated you to do better when you was like down and all of that. Like, what would you do to motivate yourself to get up every day?
To get up every day?
Yeah.
Well, it started back when I said earlier, when I had my first kid. You know, I wanted to succeed, you know, for my family. I wanted to play well, you know, for my family, but also wanted to play well for my teammates too. I mean, that was my motivation right there. You know, I'm on the football team. I made it to the National Football League. You know, that's enough motivation for me right there. And I wanted to play a long time, and I wanted to be on a successful team. And but you know, if you ever been to Buffalo, you'll see the passion that the fans have. They love their football team, just like everybody else does. You know, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. But the motivating factor with me was, you know, Mr. Wilson, our owner, bought the team for $25,000 back in 1959. $25,000 he bought the team to move to Buffalo. And he just passed away, and now it's worth $900 million, a team, in a small market. And so you want Mr. Wilson to be happy. You know, even though, you know, after the 4 Super Bowls, he joked about every last one of them. But the thing I do remember about Mr. Wilson, and and what he meant to not only the team, but also the city. His exact words to almost to every single football player after every single football game, after every single Super Bowl, 4 years in a row, whether you were the long snapper, whether you were the punter, the kicker, wide receiver, or whatever, his words were always, "We wouldn't have got here without you." And that stuck for a lot of people right there. For him to, I mean, he could have dismantled the team or whatever, but for him to say, "We wouldn't have got here without you," means a lot, not only to the players, but it also means a lot to their families too.
Again, that respect thing.
Yep.
A lot of respect. If you wouldn't mind sharing, Thurman, you shared with the earlier group, I had mentioned in his introduction that Thurman dropped to the second round, and you talk about motivation.
Yeah.
You might tell that story about what you used to do to kind of remind you of that.
Well, I was supposed to go in the first round. Supposed to. I had talked to some teams, the Atlanta Falcons, the LA Rams, my hometown team, Houston Oilers, the Saints. But like I said, in going into my junior year, I tore my ACL. And so I was actually, you know how they have the ESPN thing now where they might show a player like at his house or at his school on draft day? Well, I was actually the first college player to do that back in Oklahoma, back in Stillwater, Oklahoma State. I was actually the first player that they did that special on. And the lady that was there, her name was Andrea Kramer. And so if they're going through the first round, the end of the first round, I'm still there. I'm not picked at all. ESPN calls Andrea Kramer and says, "Hey, you know, this is embarrassing. We got to go. We can't stay here any longer." And so she got off the phone with ESPN. She actually was on the phone with Chris Berman. And she said, "Hey, look, this is embarrassing. It didn't turn out the way that you wanted, that we thought it was going to happen. And obviously for you, it's a little bit embarrassing." And I looked at her and said, "There's no way y'all leaving now. Y'all been here this long? No, you guys going to be embarrassed with me." So I ended up making them stay there the entire time until I got drafted, which was the 40th pick. But you talk about, you know, and thanks for reminding me, you talk about like motivation. I used to watch that film, the draft tape, every Saturday. I wouldn't watch the entire draft, but I would watch from like, I guess maybe the 26th or 27th pick in the first round all the way until up when I was drafted. So that was motivation for me to actually get back at the teams that passed up on me. So.
Good point. Okay, do we have some more questions from the audience over here? Stand and tell us your school and your name.
My name is Keenan Elks, and from McDonald High School. The question is, when and why did you first become interested in football?
Well, actually, I was never really interested in football. I was a baseball player growing up. I'm a Yankee fan. I was a baseball player growing up. I didn't start playing football until 8th grade. And it just happened to be my mom we were moving, and the baseball team that I wanted to play for, it was a 45-minute drive. So, and the team in the area that I was going to, it was strictly track, football, and basketball. Didn't have a baseball team. So I decided, okay, I got to do something new here. So I ended up choosing football my 8th grade year. Actually, that year, I wasn't going to even play sports. I was actually on the day of the tryout, I was actually on the bus going to go home because football just wasn't in my plans. You know, my father played. I had an uncle that played in professional league for Denver, for Minnesota. A couple of uncles that played in the Canadian Football League. So, I mean, football was in my family. I just didn't like it. And so I ended up going for the tryout. Actually, the head coach came and got me off the bus. Went out. Now, I didn't know how to put my knee pads in. I didn't know how to put anything in, my shoulder pads. Hell, I didn't know any of this because I had never played. It was always track or baseball. So I ended up getting off the bus. All my friends there, when I walked into the locker room, they were, you know, "Oh, yeah." So I get in, I get dressed, I go out on the football field, and the first play. So we kind of like, it's a live scrimmage. We go through warm-ups and everything. So the first play that first time I ever carried the football, I ended up going like 60 yards for a touchdown. So I turn around, I'm looking, and like all the coaches and the players, they're giving high fives and whatever. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I continued to play after that, and just took on from right there in the 8th grade. Ended up getting a scholarship at Oklahoma State University. Anybody else know who went to Oklahoma State University? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Barry Sanders.
You know who Thurman
yeah.
Thomas's backup was at Oklahoma State University?
So
Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders, yeah. I don't normally pat myself on the back, but for that one I have to. To keep Barry Sanders on the bench, yeah. I always tell Barry, I said, thank God I was there before you. But, and just to another side to that, I got a 12-year-old son, he plays football. But he started playing about 4 years ago. And almost the exact same thing happened to him. Only that first time that he touched the ball, he went 70 yards for a touchdown. So, but like I said earlier, I was a baseball player growing up. And guess what my son's favorite sport is? Baseball instead of football. So we've actually kind of swapped a little bit, you know. I actually ended up love baseball, ended up playing football. He loves, yeah, you know what I get. Yeah. He loves baseball more than he does love football right now, so.
I'm going to read a question from Ellicott Elementary School, connected with our video conferencing. When you were a kid, who taught you about sportsmanship? This comes from Ms. Maggio's class. Who taught you about sportsmanship?
Well, you know what? It was a combination of a lot of folks in my life. Obviously, you know, my dad was a great high school football player in Texas, so he talked to me a lot about that. Some of the coaches that he had growing up, you know, but I learned all about, you know, without even playing sports. With playing sports, but mostly my stuff that I got came from home. You know, I had a very caring mother. I had a very caring family. Even though I didn't have a dad growing up, you know, I still visited with my dad, and he still cared about me just as much as he would if I was living at home. If he was living at home with us, my stepfather came along when I was in 9th grade, and he was always caring. But just being around a lot of family members, and I learned so much. I learned so much, and I know sometimes kids struggle with, you know, moving around to different neighborhoods, different family members, but I had such a caring and family that, you know what, you know, growing up, you know, I used to do charity events then. I respected others way back when. You know, I went to Oklahoma State, and I was a honorary captain for the Special Olympics. So it's always been about, you know, not really, you know, never been about me. It's always been about the respect and the care that I have for other people. And I think that's something that's kind of lacking today, is the respect of other people. Like I said earlier, we may disagree, but I'm still going to respect you. And I think that's really, that has been a major force in my life and in my family life, is that, you know what, I don't know you, but I respect you. We may disagree, but I will always respect you and respect your opinion of what you believe in and against what I believe in. So I've always had this from a very young age, and you know, I care about I care about people I don't even know. You know, I visit, when I'm in Buffalo now, I visit schools, Roswell, I visit hospitals, just unannounced stuff, because that's what I like to do. That was some of the stuff that I did growing up.
Could you share we had an earlier session with the school group this morning, and a student asked about if there was one play or one game that you could change the outcome, and you told him a story. Would you mind repeating that? That was a great story.
Yeah, well, that was kind of a question that you asked me about the mindset after the 3rd Super Bowl. Well, after we lost our 4th Super Bowl, you know, and this just goes to show you the type of players that we had on our football team and the type of family that we were in this atmosphere. If you can remember, I don't know, your kids might not remember. Well, in our last Super Bowl against the Cowboys, we were winning, I think it was 13-6 at halftime. And came out in the third quarter, ended up fumbling the ball. Leon Lett knocked it loose. He ended up running in for the touchdown. So now we're 13-13. And they got all the momentum, end up beating us. I think they ended up beating us 30-13 in Super Bowl 28. And obviously, I'm heartbroken, I'm hurt, because I always tell the guy, I cost them the game. So, and it all comes back to how I was raised, how my parents were, but also how much, I loved and cared about my teammates. Is that we got into the locker room, and you can see the dejection from, just a lot of guys, just, not crying, but just hurt. And so I felt like at that point in time, something clicked in my head, and I said, I got to do something, because I'm the cause of this, because of the fumble, the momentum change. So I called up. We actually had a microphone in the locker room. I called up everybody, and I apologized to the entire football team for fumbling and changing the momentum of the football game. And from what my teammates, grown men started to cry. I mean, it was not what I was expecting, but I figured I had to do something. I had to explain to them, I'm sorry. And grown men started crying in the locker room, and you're talking about something that was touching. Guys were coming up and saying, hey, man, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. I didn't do this on this play. I didn't do that on that play. And it just like a snowball. I mean, to see some 27, 28 to all the way up to like 35-year-old men cry was very touching. But that's the way that I carry myself. If I make a mistake, I'm going to live up to it. I mean, and earlier, to go back and talk about, in the last session, somebody asked me about Scott Norwood when he missed the field goal in Super Bowl 25. There's never been anybody on that team that went to all 4 Super Bowls that ever blamed Scott Norwood for anything. That's the type of teammates that we have, that we had. Never blame anyone. We didn't blame anyone for anything. We lost 4 as a team. If we'd have won 4 in the team, we'd have won 4 in the team. But I don't think it would have messed up the bond that we have and the love that we have for each other still to this day. Now, one of my best friends, Jim Kelly, is in the hospital right now fighting cancer. He's been in there for 2 weeks. Like I said earlier, it was 36 guys that played on all 4 of those Super Bowls. Now it's down to 33. And he's been in the hospital 2 weeks. There's already been 21 guys that have already visited him from that football team. So that tells you the type of football players, type of men that we had on this football team. And I'm going back up there Sunday for a couple of more days. This will be my 2nd time. So that's the type of team that we had. Like I said, we won as a team and we lost as a team. But more than that, we cared about each other more than, we had a bunch of brothers on our football team.
I think that goes, again, I don't mean to keep repeating this, but since it is the theme, if you think about that locker room scene after that loss and the responsibility that Thurman stood up and took, whether it was his fault or not, he stood up and said, I'm taking that responsibility. It was the respect that his teammates showed for him, saying, no, it's not your fault. We all contributed to this. The trustworthiness that they had amongst themselves, that they could talk candidly like that about it, that they didn't blame each other. Fairness, that's all about fairness, being fair, being competitive but fair. You don't blame people. And then caring. This is a theme that is in the locker room, thankfully in most locker rooms, but it was very significant in that locker room. And the word citizenship, I keep saying this, but citizenship doesn't just mean to your community of where you live. The locker room is a community. The classroom is a community. To have citizenship within those communities is a quality that you want to have. And I think that's something that sport teaches. It's something that certainly Thurman can relate to and relate to you, hopefully, that you can then take on with you as you go through life and seek out your endeavors. Now, let's go back to some more questions. Mike, do you have a question over here? Someone, there we go.
Yeah.
My name's Patricia Berkowitz. We're visiting on spring break from Cary, North Carolina. And my question was...
You say Cary?
Cary, yes.
C-A-R-Y.
C-A-R-Y.
I looked at a house there. Okay, go ahead.
Home of the Imps. Home of the Imps. My question was, at what point in high school did you realize that you were actually going to be able to move forward and make it to the college level? And then how did you go about looking at the colleges and picking them, and who guided you in that choice? Because as a young man, with a lot of people maybe pulling on you,
Right.
how did you manage to focus not only on your studies, but the reality that you were going to move forward when percentage-wise, for a lot of athletes, that doesn't come into play?
Right. Well, first of all, I think it was right around 10th or 11th grade. I think it might have been 10th grade. Well, my parents told me that they couldn't afford me to go to college. So that right there was like, whoa. I wanted to go to college. But in order for me to go to college, I'm probably going to have to get a scholarship. And so once I got to, growing up in Texas, if anybody knows Texas football, it's pretty popular. I mean, people shut down towns just to go to a football game. And I just happened to be on a pretty good football team. And the area that I was in, it was a fairly new high school that I got there in ninth grade. It was only in its second year. Yeah, so it was fairly new. So, and we had a lot of good athletes. 10th grade year, we went to the state championship. We lost. We were 4A. The highest was 5A, so we were a little bit below. We were 4A. We lost the state championship. We finished 14-1. My junior year, we won state. We finished 15-0. And my senior year, we got to the semifinal game, ended up losing it. And we finished, I guess, 13-1, something like that. So at that point in time, right around the 10th, 11th grade, my uncle, who went to UCLA, and I had an uncle who went to University of Texas, El Paso. And they kind of like, this is getting ready to be kind of crazy here with the recruiting. So we actually put together like a committee. It was my two uncles that went to college, my stepdad, my real father, and my mom, and my stepmother. Which I had a crazy family. Yeah. And they used to go to games together. My real mom and real dad and my stepmother, they used to go to games and be like, "Where are your parents?" And all four hands would raise up. And so, yeah. So we put together a committee to look at the schools of where I wanted to go, who was going to try to recruit me. So, I mean, it was a very intense process that we put the recruiters through that made my decision a little bit, because they didn't want me worried about it. They wanted to know about the academics, the coaches, and the trainers, and how many people on campus. And usually when you're in Texas, you usually don't leave the state of Texas. You usually you go to the University of Texas or you go to Texas A&M. Well, those schools wanted me to play defensive back, and so I didn't want to play defensive back. I wanted to play running back. So we formed a committee for my 11th and 12th grade year, because you started to get the letters and things like that. So we formed a committee and just made the process just a whole lot easier. Is that answered? Okay.
We have a question over on this side.
Hi, my name is Anthony Bonames, and my question is, who's the best defensive player you've ever played against?
Who's the best defensive player that I've ever played against? Well, I would say Lawrence Taylor, but I only played against Lawrence Taylor twice in my career. And one guy that I played against 7 times would definitely be the toughest defender I ever played against, and that would be Ronnie Lott from the San Francisco 49ers. He actually played in San Francisco, and then he went to the Jets, then he went to Oakland. So throughout that period of time, I got to play Ronnie Lott 7 times. And when you're on the football field, whether you're a wide receiver or you're a running back, you always want to locate where number 42 is because, like I said, yeah, he's coming. He's bringing it. And plus, like Joe was saying earlier, I lined up at wide receiver a lot. So that meant crossing over the middle and looking for Ronnie Lott, but he also blitzed a lot too. So I would definitely say Ronnie Lott was the toughest defender that I ever played against. Now, the best defender that I ever saw play was probably Bruce Smith, even though because I played with him for 12 years and saw what he did over the course of those years. So Bruce Smith was probably, I wouldn't say the best defensive player, but the best defensive lineman, I would say, to ever play the game. I know there was like a lot of Reggie White fans, and obviously, you know, everybody give respect to Deacon Jones, who passed away a couple of years ago. So.
Okay, well, let me go back to our pillars again, Thurman. We've got a question from Ellicott Elementary. This one comes from Mrs. Alexander's class, and they ask, how do you follow those 6 pillars off the field?
How do I follow them off the field? Yeah. Well, you know, I don't go a lot of places. No. I'm a homebody. I like to stay at home. But, you know, I think how I follow them is because I do so much. I do so much for people that I don't know. I do so much. So that allows me to go through almost all of these 6 pillars when I'm out throughout the week in Buffalo, whether it's visiting a hospital, visiting an elementary school, or going to a charity event, or going to a fundraiser or something like that. That's when I can use all of those because I'm never, you know, the one thing that I like doing, the one thing that I love enjoying is meeting people. I think that's it's just so important, I think, in life, whether it's you know, meet as many people as you possibly can. And also, you know, being on where I'm at in my life, you know, living in Buffalo, you know, a lot of people never got to see me in Buffalo. And so now I get to see a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have ran into. I just enjoy meeting people and putting smiles on their faces. I'm always doing stuff that, you know, I may leave the house and drop my daughter off at school at 7:30 in the morning and probably wouldn't even get back home till about 8 o'clock. But, you know, my wife knows my schedule. She knows what I'm doing. If I'm out, whatever, you know, she knows I'm out visiting some people or doing some things to try to help the community. So, I mean, I probably use about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of those every single day.
That's great. That's terrific. Yeah. And just as a general question, if you were to say, you know, what about sports is the best life lesson that you could relate to? What do you think sport taught you, the most positive thing you took away from your career in sports? Well,
I think the most important thing that I've taken away from, you know, playing sports, you know, is you know, probably, you know, being on a team. More than anything, probably being on a team and knowing that it's not some individual sport. And I think that's why, you know, I really have been successful at what I like to do and what I love to do. Just being on a team where, you know, sure, you have a lot of different backgrounds from a lot of different people, but if you can some way, somehow orchestrate that to where everybody can get along, it's a powerful thing.
Sure.
And if everybody's on the same page, it's a powerful thing. And so I think that's one of the things that I really do love about and loved about, and I still to this day, is trying to see how you can orchestrate 47 to 53 guys to be on the same page.
Yeah, that is tough.
Yeah.
That is tough. Okay, we have some more questions. We've got time for a couple more right here in the front. Bring a microphone to you.
With his Giants jersey on.
Uh-oh.
My name is Pastor Valdez. What encouraged you to play all the way from when you were a kid to professionals?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that encourage me. You know what? I think you know, I think it goes back to my family background, you know, bouncing all around, but being around a lot of different people. I think that kind of helped me to be on a team, to be on a high school team, to be on a college team, to be on a professional team. I think, you know, just with my background, it made my job a little bit easier to able to deal with, you know, somebody that might be in my situation that might be struggling with it, growing up with a single parent household, you know, and I think when you have something like that, it helps you. It helps you, it helps other people. I mean, the best way I can get my point across to anybody, whether I know you or don't know you, is talking to you. It's talking to you and showing you that, hey, there is somebody out there that cares about you. There is somebody out there that respects you. There's somebody out there that wants to help you.
That's great. Okay. Do we have any questions over on this side here? Right here, this young man, right in the aisle here.
You got a Bears shirt. What?
Well, where are all the
Man,
Bears jerseys?
where? You got Giants, you got Bears, you got, oh, there's a Brown right there, okay.
I'm Nick Cohen, and I want to know if there was ever like a Richie Incognito on your team, and if so, how did your teammates handle it?
Man, I wish there was a Richie Cognito on my team. He wouldn't have lasted very long. Trust me, he would not have lasted very long. You know, that's a good question too, because I think all that has been brought to life of some of the bullying and all the stuff that has been going on with sports, on sports team. But yeah, it wouldn't have happened on our team, and it would have been settled very, very quickly. I mean, those are the type of, it goes back to the type of guys that we had on our football team. We were not going to let one or two guys ruin what we had going on. I mean, there was now, and obviously if you look at that Miami Dolphin team, I mean, you look at that team and name me one player who you think was a leader on that football team. Not one. Nobody stepped up. Not even the head coach. Not even the owner. Not even the trainers or whoever. Usually in a situation like that, who's the number one guy that everybody look to? They look for the quarterback. I mean, he's probably more closer to those guys than anybody else on the football team because they have to go through their cadence and have to go through meetings and see what type of calls that they're going to get. But no, I can honestly say, you know, I don't know if it'll ever happen again. There could be a possibility where it could happen again. But if it does, I guarantee you someone will speak up before it gets to the point to where it got right now. So,
Great question.
yeah, really good question.
Anything more? Another question? I thought I saw a hand over here.
Don't the ladies have any questions?
Well, I'm going to go back to the video conferencing here for one final question
All
from
right.
them. And this one is, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. I'm going to change it up a little bit because I know you kind of alluded to it. But the question is, what was your inspiration during your football career? And if I could change that just a little bit, if you could talk a little bit about who your inspiration was. You know, you don't have to name names, but who were they in your life and in the football world? Who inspired you?
Well, you know, obviously, you know, I can say a lot of people, but I always like to change it up a little bit because I can give, you know, 10 different answers if I wanted to.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I've been a big believer for a long time. Been a big believer for a long time, and my faith has always been very important to me. And it's even more important now, you know, because of the situation that I'm in with my buddy Jim Kelly, and owner Mr. Ralph Wilson passing away. But, you know, I always wanted to, you know, feel like the guy sitting over there on the end on the wall over there, Emmitt Smith, looking at a guy like him, you know, that's, I wanted to be better than him, you know. I wanted to be better than Barry. And I think that kind of kept me inspired and motivated me. And this was even after, you know, we had lost 4 Super Bowls.
Sure.
You know, I was still always thinking that, okay, there's still an opportunity for me. You know, I just finished my sixth year after the fourth Super Bowl, I still got some
Gas in the tank.
energy left in these legs, and and guys, and talking to guys like Emmett, who I thought one of the weirdest, not weirdest, but after they won the second Super Bowl in Atlanta, he came up to me, and I remember we tell this story all the time. He came up to me. He had his little niece with him, and his words were to me. He said, looking at his niece, he said, "Here's the best running back in the National Football League." He was pointing at me. I was like, wow, And my response was, well, I trade this loss for a win right now, and you can be the best running back in the National Football League. But he said that to me, and just, it just kind of like, oh, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate it. Because at that time, I was going through a tough time. We had just lost. And so, yeah, it was tough. But, just guys like that, who took their time out to say that to me. Like I said, I'm very close with Barry Sanders also, Marshall Faulk, all the running backs that played, throughout my time and throughout my era, those were the guys that motivated me. I wanted to be inspired because, even though I didn't have a foundation, those guys had foundation, and I was always traveling to be a part of their foundation, and I always was like, you know what? These are definitely the type of guys that I want to hang around. These are the type of guys that inspire me to continue to strive to be the best.
That's a great way to probably end this, but I think I want to come back to one word that we use here at the Hall of Fame an awful lot. In fact, it's in our mission statement. It's about excellence. We want to inspire excellence in everyone. And I think if you go through the Hall of Fame and you see the bronze busts of players like Barry and the gentleman depicted behind us, look deeper. They are examples of excellence at what they did. But that excellence is not just what they do on the football field. You can hear it in Thurman's voice, his conviction. It's about achieving, striving to be excellent, whatever it is you do. And with that, I think we're going to close it out. I want to pose one question. If I could have one student, I know this is tough, I'm going to put somebody on the spot, but I asked Thurman who inspired him. And already in your life, I'm sure there's somebody that inspired you. I want to ask, is anybody bold enough to stand up and tell me who inspires them today? Who's an inspiration to you? Any student.
You want me to pick? Yeah, there you go. I like that young man right there.
I don't know if you heard the answer. His answer as he pulled it out of his chair because he's so proud of it was his mother.
My mother.
That's very
good.
commendable.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yep.
There's teachers in here, there's coaches in here, there's your friends in here. All of them should inspire you, and you should learn from them and help teach them as well. All of us can still learn.
You're being inspired to help each other. That's key, to helping each other. I mean, because I think we all know we're in a tough battle right now around the United States. We're in a tough battle, and I think we need to have more people being inspired and be motivated to help each other, and not just help yourself. That's fine, because when you help others, you know what, you're going to feel a lot better, and that's always been the thing that I look forward to, is to try and help others as much as I possibly can every single day. I try to wake up with a smile on my face every single day.
Let's give a big round of applause for Thurman Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today, and I hope those of you who have time have the opportunity to walk through the Hall of Fame and see other examples of excellence. Thank you, Thurman.
Thank you very much.